I am Stephen, 28 years old, and at my family's Christmas dinner, I was treated like a trespasser in my own life. Before I tell you how I turned their laughter into absolute silence, let me know where you are watching from in the comments. The wind in the New York suburbs has a way of cutting right through you in December. It's a wet, heavy cold that settles in your bones. But as I stood on the porch of my parents' house, brushing snow off the shoulders of my 3-year-old coat, I knew the real chill was waiting for me inside. I took a deep breath, gripping the neck of the wine bottle I brought. It wasn't a flashy label. It was a 2015 Cabernet from a small vineyard in Napa that I actually owned a stake in. I didn't put my name on it, and it didn't have gold foil wrapping. It just tasted incredible. To my parents, Richard and Karen, if it didn't sparkle or come with a 4-digit price tag, it was garbage. I opened the door. The heat hit me first, smelling of cinnamon, expensive perfume, and pretension. "Stephen, you made it!" My mother, Karen, called out from the living room. She didn't get up. She was sitting on the white leather sofa, holding a crystal glass, her eyes fixed on the man standing by the fireplace. "Wipe your feet, please. We just had the carpets deep cleaned for Brad." "Hi, Mom," I said, kicking the snow off my boots on the mat. "Merry Christmas." "Yeah, Merry Christmas." My father, Richard, grunted. He was standing next to the man by the fireplace, looking at him with an adoration I hadn't seen directed at me since I won a spelling bee in the 2nd grade. And there he was, Brad, my sister Emily's new boyfriend. He looked exactly like the type of guy who parks in handicap spots because he's just running in for a minute. Slicked back hair, a suit that was a little too tight in the biceps to show he worked out, and a watch that was definitely too big for his wrist. "So, this is the little brother," Brad boomed, his voice filling the room. He didn't walk over to shake my hand. He waited for me to come to him. "Emily told me you were into computers or something. Tech support." Emily, my older sister, laughed. She was draped over the armrest of the sofa, swirling her drink. "He's a coder, Brad. He fixes bugs. You know, like the IT guys you yell at when your email doesn't load. Right? Right?" Brad grinned, finally extending a hand. His grip was aggressive, a dominance test. "Good, honest work. Someone's got to reset the passwords, right? It pays the bills," I said simply, pulling my hand back. I didn't mention that the bugs I fixed were usually massive security breaches for Fortune 500 companies, or that my coding had built an AI infrastructure currently valued at 9 figures. To them, I was Stephen, the guy with the Honda Civic in the studio apartment. "I brought some wine," I said, setting the bottle on the coffee table. The room went quiet. Brad picked up the bottle, squinting at the label like he was inspecting a dirty penny. "What is this?" Brad asked, chuckling. "Did you brew this in your bathtub, Steve?" "It's a Cabernet," I said. "Small batch. It needs to breathe a little, but it's good." "Cute," Emily sneered. "Mom, put that in the kitchen. Maybe we can use it for the pot roast sauce later." "Actually," Brad interrupted, reaching behind the sofa and pulling out a bottle housed in a velvet box, "I think we're covered. I picked this up today. Chateau Margaux. A little treat for the family." My father's eyes nearly popped out of his head. "Brad, you shouldn't have. That's incredibly generous. Only the best for Emily's family," Brad said, winking at me. "See, Steve? Presentation matters. You can't just show up with a naked bottle and expect people to be impressed. It's about class. It's about status." "I'll keep that in mind," I said, keeping my voice even. We moved to the dining table. The dinner was a performance. It always was. My mother had set out the good china, the silver that usually stayed locked away. Everything was perfect except for the seating arrangement. They had put me at the end of the table near the kitchen door, in a folding chair because the main table only seated 4 comfortably. I sat there cutting my turkey, listening to the Brad show. "So the regional manager position is practically mine," Brad announced, waving his fork. "I've crushed the sales targets for 3 quarters straight. The Phoenix Group is expanding, and they need leaders, real leaders, not people who hide behind screens." He looked at me pointedly. I took a sip of water. "That is amazing, Brad," my mother gushed. "A regional manager. Imagine that, Richard. Our Emily dating a regional manager." It comes with a hefty salary increase too, I bet. My father added, leaning in. Huge, Brad nodded. Plus a company car. They're talking about a BMW, but I might push for the Mercedes. You have to project success to attract success. That's my motto. What about you, Steve? Still driving that, what is it, a Honda? It gets me from A to B, I said. See, that's the problem, Brad laughed, looking around the table for approval. Small mindset. You're content with A to B. I'm interested in how I look when I arrive. You need to upgrade your life, buddy. Get a real job. Get out of the basement. I don't live in a basement, I said. Metaphorically, Brad waved his hand dismissively. You're in the basement of life. But hey, don't worry. Once I take over the division, maybe I can find a spot for you in the mailroom. We always need guys to sort the envelopes. The table erupted. My father slapped his knee. Emily giggled, covering her mouth. Even my mother offered a tight, pitying smile. Don't be mean, Brad, Mom said, though she didn't sound like she meant it. Stephen tries. He's just different. He's always been the slow starter. I felt my phone buzz in my pocket. I ignored it, but it buzzed again. 2 long vibrations. That was the priority signal. Under the table, I slid my phone out. It was a message from Marcus Sterling, the public CEO of my company, the man whose face was on all the magazines, so mine didn't have to be. The acquisition is finalized. Papers are signed. You now own 100% of the Phoenix Group. We own them, Stephen. We own it all. I looked up from the phone. Brad was currently explaining to my father how to cheat on his taxes by hiding assets in offshore accounts, calling it smart wealth management. Is everything okay, Stephen? Emily asked sharply. It's rude to be on your phone at dinner, but I guess you wouldn't know much about social etiquette. Just work, I said, slipping the phone back. A strange calmness washed over me. I looked at Brad. I didn't see a bully anymore. I saw an employee. My employee. Actually, Brad said, wiping his mouth with a linen napkin, speaking of work, I have a surprise. I managed to pull some strings. I got tickets for everyone to the Phoenix Group Christmas Gala tomorrow night. My mother gasped. The gala? At the Grand Hotel. The very same. Brad beamed. Black tie, open bar, the whole 9 yards. It's going to be the event of the season. They're announcing the Employee of the Year, and, well, let's just say you might want to have your cameras ready. Oh, Brad, Emily squealed, kissing him on the cheek. You're amazing. And, Brad turned his eyes to me, a predatory glint in them. I got a ticket for Steve, too. I figured it would be good for him to see what a real corporate environment looks like. Maybe it'll inspire him to shave and buy a suit that fits. I have a suit, I said. Great, Brad smirked. Try not to spill anything on it. The big bosses are going to be there. Rumor has it the new owner, the silent partner who just bought the company, might even show up. I want to make a good impression. I don't need my girlfriend's brother looking like a charity case in the background. I'll try to blend in, I said. The irony was so thick I could almost taste it. You do that, Brad said, raising his glass of Chateau Margaux. Here's to success. Real success. Not whatever Stephen does. They clinked glasses. I raised my water glass, but nobody clinked it against mine. They were too busy toasting to the future. A future that I now held in the palm of my hand. To the gala, I whispered to myself. To the gala. The dinner ended with me doing the dishes while the successful people retired to the living room for brandy. This was the family dynamic. It had been this way for as long as I could remember. As I scrubbed the grease off the roasting pan, I looked out the window at the falling snow. It triggered a memory, sharp and stinging, from 15 years ago. It was Christmas morning. I was 13. Emily was 16. I remembered coming down the stairs, heart pounding, hoping for the one thing I had asked for, a computer kit. A simple Raspberry Pi set so I could learn to build circuits. Cost maybe $50. Under the tree, the piles were uneven. Massively uneven. Emily got a brand new laptop. She got designer boots. She got a car stereo for the car she didn't even have yet. I got socks, a pack of six, and a gift card to a bookstore that had gone out of business 3 months prior. We're tight on money this year, Stephen. My dad had said, not looking at me as he helped Emily set up her laptop. You understand. You're the boy. You need to be tough. Besides, Emily needs this stuff for school. She's going places. I wanted to learn to code, I had whispered. Code? Mom laughed, sipping her morning coffee. Stephen, be realistic. You're not a genius. You're a worker. You need to learn how to do manual labor. That's where your future is. That night, 15 years ago, I went down to the freezing basement. I didn't cry. I took an old radio apart and put it back together. Then I took the toaster apart. I learned how things worked. I learned that if I wanted anything in this life, I had to build it myself, in the dark, where no one was watching. The sound of shattering glass brought me back to the present. Oops, Emily's voice from the living room. It's okay, leave it. Stephen can get it when he's done in there. I dried my hands and walked into the living room. Brad had dropped his glass. Red wine was soaking into the white rug. The one Mom had just paid hundreds to have cleaned. Sorry about that, buddy. Brad grinned, not looking sorry at all. Got a little animated telling the story of my biggest sale. Clean that up for me, would you? My mother didn't yell at him. If I had dropped that glass, I would have been disowned. Instead, she waved her hand. It's fine, Brad. Accidents happen. Stephen, there's club soda under the sink. I knelt on the floor, scrubbing the stain. From this angle, I could see under the sofa. I saw a small red envelope that had fallen out of my father's pocket. It had the logo of a mortgage lender on it. I frowned. They had paid off the house years ago. I finished cleaning, stood up, and checked my watch. I should get going. I have work to do. On Christmas Eve? Brad scoffed. See, that's why you're single, Steve. No work-life balance. You're grinding for pennies while I'm making deals in my sleep. Good night, Mom. Good night, Dad, I said. Don't be late tomorrow, Mom warned. The gala starts at 7 o'clock. And please, Stephen, try to look presentable for Emily's sake. I walked out into the cold. I didn't go to my apartment. I drove to my office, a nondescript building in Midtown that housed the central servers for my company. I sat down at my terminal, the blue light of the screens washing over me. This was my sanctuary. This was where I was a god. System status, I muttered. Online, the automated voice replied. I typed in a command. Query personnel, Bradley Miller, Phoenix Group. The screen populated instantly. I started digging. If I was going to fire him, I wanted to know exactly who I was firing. What I found made my stomach turn. Brad wasn't just arrogant. He was a thief. I saw the sales figures he was bragging about. They were inflated. He was booking sales for the next fiscal year as current revenue to trigger his bonuses. That was fraud, plain and simple. But then I saw something worse. There was a subfolder labeled Charity Fund Christmas Drive. Phoenix Group collected donations from employees all year to buy toys for underprivileged kids. Brad was the treasurer of the fund. I pulled up the bank records. The account should have had $50,000 in it. It had $400. The withdrawals were systematic. Payments to a leasing company for a BMW, payments to a high-end jeweler, payments to a luxury rental agency for tuxedos. He was using the orphans' money to fund his fake lifestyle. He bought that Chateau Margaux with money meant for sick kids. My blood ran cold. This wasn't just about him bullying me anymore. This was a crime. I picked up my phone and called Sarah, my personal lawyer. It was 11 p.m. on Christmas Eve. She answered on the first ring. Stephen, is everything all right? No, Sarah, it's not, I said, my voice shaking with suppressed rage. I need you to prepare a dossier. Bradley Miller, Regional Sales. I'm sending you the files now. I want everything ready for the gala tomorrow. You going to do it at the party? Sarah asked. Stephen, that's public. It's brutal. He stole from the charity fund, Sarah. He's stealing from the company. And I paused, looking at the red envelope I had seen under the sofa in my mind. I need you to check public property records for my parents' address. 42 Oak Street. Hold on, Sarah typed in the background. Okay, here it is. Stephen, there's a new lien on the house, recorded 3 days ago. How much? $300,000. High interest, short-term loan. Looks like a bridge loan for an investment. I closed my eyes. The conversation I had overheard earlier between Brad and my dad suddenly made sense. Brad had pitched them an investment opportunity, a guaranteed return. He scammed them, I whispered. He convinced my parents to leverage the house my grandmother built, the house that was supposed to be my inheritance, and give him the money. Stephen, if they sign the papers willingly. I know, I said. I can't stop the loan, but I can stop him from spending it. Sarah, I need full custody of the Phoenix Group's financial controls by tomorrow morning, freezing all internal accounts associated with Brad Miller. Done, Sarah said. And Stephen. Yeah. Happy Christmas. It will be, I said, staring at Brad's smiling employee photo on my screen. It really will be. I hung up. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in my office, watching the city lights, feeling the anger refine itself into something sharp and cold. They treated me like a clown. They laughed at my whine. They mocked my life. My parents were willing to sell my future to fund a con man because he looked the part of the son they wanted. Fine. If they wanted a show, I would give them a show. I opened my email and sent one final message to Marcus Sterling. Subject: The Gala. Body: prepare the introduction and have security on standby. I'm driving myself tomorrow. Prepare the Phantom. I leaned back in my chair. The ghosts of Christmas past were screaming in my head. The lonely nights, the socks under the tree, the feeling of being invisible. Tomorrow, I wouldn't be invisible. Tomorrow, I would be the only thing they could see. The next morning, the sky was a bruised purple, heavy with more snow. I spent the morning in a place my family didn't know I frequented, a private tailor on Madison Avenue. Mr. Stephen, the tailor, Giovanni, nodded as I walked in. The tuxedo is ready. Thank you, Giovanni. It wasn't a rental. It was a bespoke midnight blue tuxedo with black satin lapels. Cost more than Brad's car. I put it on in the fitting room. The fabric felt like water against my skin. I looked in the mirror. The guy in the hoodie was gone. Staring back was the man who had built an empire from a basement. My phone buzzed. A text from Mom. Please tell me you rented a suit. Don't wear that gray jacket you wore to the funeral. It smells like mothballs. I didn't reply. I checked my other messages. One from Sarah. The legal team is briefed. The police have been notified about the embezzlement. They will be waiting in the wings. One from Marcus. I'm at the venue. Brad is here yelling at the catering staff. He's acting like he owns the place. You're going to enjoy this. I walked out of the shop, the cold air hitting my face. I felt calm. It was the calm before the storm. I took a cab to the Grand Hotel. I wasn't going to reveal the car just yet. That was for the exit. The grand ballroom was dripping with gold and crystal. Massive Christmas trees stood in every corner, decorated with lights that probably cost a year's salary for a normal worker. There were 500 people there, employees, investors, partners. I spotted my family near the ice sculpture. They stood out. My mother was wearing a dress that was too sparkly, trying too hard. My father looked uncomfortable in a stiff suit. Emily was clinging to Brad's arm like a trophy. And Brad was in his element. He was holding court, laughing loudly, gesturing with a champagne flute. I took a deep breath and walked over. Well, look who decided to show up, Brad shouted as he saw me. He scanned my outfit. For a split second, I saw confusion in his eyes. He recognized quality, but his ego quickly dismissed it. Did you rob a magician, Steve? Or did you finally find a rental shop that stocks your size? You look nice, Stephen, Mom said, surprised. She reached out to touch the lapel. Is this silk? Careful, Karen, Brad laughed. If he stains it, he won't get his deposit back. Grab a drink, Steve, but go to the back bar. The top shelf stuff here is for executives. I'm fine with water, I said. So, Stephen, Emily said, looking me up and down with a hint of jealousy. Brad was just telling us about the owner, the new billionaire. Do you think you'll even get to see him? Or will you be stuck in the corner? I think I'll get a good view, I said. Suddenly, a hush fell over the nearby group. Marcus Sterling was walking through the crowd. Marcus was a legend, 6'2", silver hair, impeccably dressed. He radiated power. People parted for him like the Red Sea. Brad straightened his tie, panic and excitement flashing on his face. Oh my God, that's him. That's Sterling. Okay, everyone act natural. Mom, Dad, stand up straight. Emily, smile. Brad stepped forward, blocking Marcus's path. Mr. Sterling, Brad said, extending a hand, his voice pitching up an octave. Bradley Miller, Regional Sales, top performer. It is an honor, sir, a true honor. Marcus stopped. He looked at Brad's hand, then shook it briefly. Mr. Miller. Yes, I've heard a lot about you. All good things, I hope. Brad laughed nervously. I just want to introduce my family. This is my fiancée, Emily, and her parents, Richard and Karen. Wonderful people. Marcus nodded politely to them. Pleasure. Then Marcus looked at me. His eyes twinkled. He opened his mouth to speak to me, but Brad cut in. And this Brad gestured to me with a thumb, like I was a sack of potatoes. Is Stephen, Emily's brother. He's in between opportunities right now. Just came for the free food. Right, Steve? My father chuckled nervously. He's a good kid, just a little slow to launch. I locked eyes with Marcus. I gave a barely perceptible shake of my head. Not yet. Marcus pressed his lips together, suppressing a smile. I see. Well, enjoy the evening, Stephen. I have a feeling it's going to be memorable. Thank you, Marcus, I said. Mr. Sterling, Brad corrected me sharply. You call him Mr. Sterling. Show some respect. Marcus walked away. Brad spun on me, his face red. Are you insane? Brad hissed, poking me in the chest. You called him by his first name? Who do you think you are? You could have ruined everything. I am trying to secure a promotion here. Stephen, I don't need you dragging me down with your lack of social awareness. He didn't seem to mind, I said calmly. He was being polite, Emily snapped. God, Stephen, why do you always have to be so embarrassing? Maybe you should just leave. Go wait in the car. No, I said, my voice hardening. I think I'll stay for the speeches. I hear they're going to be interesting. Fine. Brad straightened his jacket, but stay out of my way. When they call my name, I don't want you anywhere near the stage. He marched off, dragging Emily with him. My parents followed, giving me disappointed looks. Just try not to make a scene, Stephen, my dad muttered. I watched them go. I reached into my pocket and touched the USB drive I had brought. Make a scene, I whispered. Dad, I'm going to burn the theater down. I walked over to the AV booth at the back of the room. The technician, a guy named Dave, who had worked for me for 5 years, was manning the console. Boss. Dave nodded, keeping his voice low. Is it ready? I asked. Loaded and queued, Dave said, as soon as you give the signal. Good. I looked out at the sea of people. I saw Brad, laughing, clinking glasses, acting like the king of the world. He was spending my money. He was stealing from children. He was bankrupting my parents. And he was mocking me. The storm wasn't just gathering. It was here. The lights dimmed. A spotlight hit the stage. The chatter died down. I stood at the back, in the shadows, watching my family at table number 4. A prime spot Brad had undoubtedly bribed someone to get. Marcus took the stage. He gave a standard welcome speech, talking about growth, the future, and the new direction of Phoenix Group. He was a great speaker, charismatic and engaging. But tonight, Marcus said, is about recognizing talent. It's about recognizing those who go above and beyond. Brad was practically vibrating in his seat. He adjusted his tie for the 10th time. We have a tradition, Marcus continued. We like to let our rising stars speak. Tonight, I'd like to invite Bradley Miller to the stage to share a few words about his success in the Northeast region. Applause erupted. Brad jumped up, buttoned his jacket, and strutted to the stage. He high-fived a few colleagues on the way. He looked like he had just won the Super Bowl. He took the microphone. The spotlight loved him. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Sterling. Brad beamed. Wow, what a year. When I look out at this crowd, I see winners. I see people who want it. He paused for dramatic effect. You know, success isn't given, it's taken. You have to be hungry. You have to be smarter than the guy next to you. He started pacing the stage. I brought my family here tonight. Brad pointed to table 4. The spotlight swung to them. My mother waved frantically, looking like she was about to faint from joy. My beautiful fiancée Emily, my future in-laws. And he paused, a cruel smirk playing on his lips. He scanned the room until he found me standing in the back. And my future brother-in-law, Steve. Hey, Steve, give a wave, buddy. The spotlight hit me. I didn't wave. I just stood there, hands in my pockets. Steve's a great guy, Brad chuckled into the mic, but he's a reminder of what happens when you don't have drive, when you settle for mediocrity. Steve brought a $10 bottle of wine to dinner last night and thought it was vintage. The crowd laughed. 500 people laughing at me. But seriously, Brad continued, Steve reminds me why I work so hard, so I don't end up fixing computers in a basement at 30 years old, so I can provide. Success allows you to help the less fortunate, like Steve. My face burned, not with shame, but with fury. He was using me as a prop in his comedy routine. My mother was laughing. My father was laughing. Emily was clapping. They were mocking me, publicly, just like they had my whole life. So Brad raised his glass. Here's to the winners. And here's to the Stevens of the world for making us look good by comparison. The crowd roared. Brad basked in the applause. Now, I prepared a little presentation on our Q4 numbers. Dave, roll the slides. Brad turned to the massive LED screen behind him, expecting to see his sales charts. But the charts didn't appear. Instead, a video file started playing. It was grainy footage from a security camera. It was unmistakably Brad, sitting in his office. The audio boomed through the ballroom speakers. Brad on video, look, I don't care about the compliance rules. Just move the decimal point. Book the order for December. I need that bonus to pay for the ring. The crowd went silent. The laughter died instantly. Brad froze on stage. What is this? Dave, cut the feed. The video changed. It was a screen recording of a bank transfer. Source, Phoenix Group Children's Charity Fund. Destination, BMW Financial Services. Amount, $1,200. Gasps rippled through the room. The screen changed again. An email from Brad to a loan shark. Email. I've got the old couple hooked. They're leveraging their house. I'll have your money by Monday. Just don't break my legs. My parents stopped laughing. My mother's hand flew to her mouth. My father turned pale gray. Dave, Brad screamed, his voice cracking. Turn it off. It's a glitch. Someone is hacking us. It's not a glitch, Brad. A voice boomed over the PA system, but it wasn't Marcus's voice. It was mine. I walked out of the shadows. I walked down the center aisle. The spotlight followed me. Who said that? Brad squinted against the glare. I did, I said, my voice steady, amplified by the wireless mic I had grabbed from the AV booth. I walked past table 4. I didn't look at my parents. I walked straight to the stage stairs. Stephen. Brad looked confused, sweat starting to bead on his forehead. What are you doing? Get off the stage. Security, get this clown out of here. I stepped onto the platform. I stood next to him. I was 3 and taller than him, something he usually hid by wearing lifts in his shoes. Tonight, I towered over him. You wanted to talk about success, Brad? I said into the mic. You wanted to talk about winners and losers. You're ruining my night, Brad hissed, covering his mic. I will kill you. Get off. I don't think so, I said. I turned to the audience. Mr. Sterling, would you please join us? Marcus walked up the stairs. He stood next to me. Ladies and gentlemen, Marcus said, his voice grave, there has been a slight change in the program. Brad, you were asking about the new owner, the silent partner who bought Phoenix Group? Yes, Brad said desperately. Tell him, Mr. Sterling. Tell this idiot who runs things. Marcus smiled. He put a hand on my shoulder. I'd be happy to, Marcus said. Brad, meet Stephen, the founder and CEO of Aurora Tech and the sole owner of the Phoenix Group. The silence that followed was heavy enough to crush a man. Brad's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. He looked at Marcus. He looked at me. He looked at the giant screen behind us, which now displayed my corporate profile. A photo of me in a suit under the headline, Tech Mogul Acquires Phoenix Group for $400 million. No, Brad whispered. That's impossible. He fixes computers. He drives a Honda. I drive a Honda because I don't need a car to tell me who I am, I said, my voice echoing through the hall. You stole from sick children to rent a BMW, Brad. That's the difference between us. I turned to look at table 4. My parents were standing up now. My father looked like he was having a heart attack. Emily was shaking her head, mouthing the word no over and over again. The clown show was over. The lion had just entered the ring. The ballroom was suspended in a state of shock. 500 pairs of eyes were glued to the stage. I looked at Brad. The arrogance had drained out of him, leaving behind a pathetic, sweating mess. Stephen, Brad's voice trembled. Steve, buddy, is this a joke? Because if it is, it's a good one. You got me. It's not a joke, Brad, I said calmly, and I'm not your buddy. I'm your boss. I pointed to the screen behind me. The evidence of the embezzlement was still looping. You mocked me for being boring, I said, addressing him but speaking to the room. You mocked me for following the rules. You told my family I was a failure because I didn't flash cash. But while you were faking numbers and stealing from the charity fund, I was building the algorithm that caught you. Stealing? Brad stammered. No, that was a loan. I was going to put it back. You took $50,000 meant for toys for orphans, I said. My voice dropped an octave, cold as ice. And you spent it on watches and rental cars to impress people you don't even like. I turned to the audience. Is this the kind of leadership Phoenix Group represents, I asked. And oh, a few voices shouted from the crowd. I didn't think so, I said. I turned back to Brad. Bradley Miller, you are fired, effective immediately. Brad staggered back as if I had punched him. You can't do that. I'm the regional manager. Not anymore, I said. And we are done. I signaled to the side of the stage. 2 police officers stepped out from the curtains. We audited the books, Brad, I said softly so only he could hear. We found everything, the tax fraud, the embezzlement, and the scheme with my parents. Brad saw the cops and panicked. He lunged for the microphone, trying to plead his case to the crowd. He's lying. He's jealous. He's always been jealous of me. Emily, tell them. But the officers were faster. They grabbed Brad by the arms. Bradley Miller, you are under arrest for grand larceny and fraud, one officer said, snapping handcuffs onto his wrists. Get your hands off me, Brad screamed, struggling. Do you know who I am? Emily, call my lawyer. Do something. I looked down at the crowd. My eyes found my family. They were paralyzed. My mother was clutching her pearls, tears streaming down her face, ruining her makeup. My father was slumped in his chair, staring at the floor. Emily was standing there, pale as a ghost, watching her perfect fiancé being dragged away in handcuffs. As the police hauled Brad off stage, he passed my family's table. You idiots, Brad screamed at them. You were supposed to give me the money on Monday. You ruined everything. The doors slammed shut behind him. The room was dead silent. I stood center stage. I adjusted my cuffs. I apologize for the interruption, I said to the crowd. Please enjoy the dinner. The open bar is on me tonight." I handed the microphone to Marcus and walked down the stairs. The crowd parted for me. People who had ignored me 10 minutes ago were now nodding respectfully, whispering, staring with awe. "Mr. Stephen," a man said, bowing slightly. "Good evening, sir." Another woman nodded. I walked straight to table 4. My family looked at me like I was a stranger, an alien. "Stephen?" my mother whispered. Her voice was weak. Is it true?" "Is what true, Mom?" I asked. "That I own the company, or that Brad is a criminal?" "You own all of this?" My father gestured around the room with a trembling hand. But you fix computers. You live in a studio." "I live in a studio because I travel 200 days a year," I said. "And I don't brag about my money, unlike some people." Emily finally found her voice. She looked at me with a mix of fear and calculation. I saw the gears turning in her head. Brad was gone. The golden goose was cooked. But here was another one. "Stephen," Emily said, her voice shaking but trying to sound sweet. "Why didn't you tell us? We're family. We would have supported you." "Supported me?" I laughed. It was a harsh, dry sound. "Emily, 10 minutes ago you told me to go wait in the car. You laughed when he called me a loser." "I was just going along with it," Emily pleaded, reaching for my arm. "You know how Brad gets. I was scared of him." "You weren't scared," I said, pulling my arm away. "You were enjoying it. You loved feeling superior." I looked at my parents. "And you two," I said. "You were ashamed of me. You sat there and let a thief insult your son because he bought you expensive wine with stolen money." "We didn't know," my father said, his voice pleading. "Stephen, we didn't know he was a crook." "Maybe not," I said. "But you knew how he treated me, and you didn't care because you thought he was rich. That's all that matters to you, isn't it? Status." "That is not fair," Mom cried. "We love you, Stephen." "Do you?" I reached into my pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. I slammed it onto the table. It rattled the silverware. It was a printout of the lien on the house. "I know about the house, Dad," I said. "I know you leveraged Grandma's house, my inheritance, the one she promised me, to give money to Brad." My father's face went white. "Stephen, it was an investment for the family." "For the family?" I shook my head. "No, for Ryan, for Emily, never for me. You were going to sell my future to buy Brad's approval." "We can fix this," Mom sobbed. "Stephen, please. Now that you're successful, maybe you can help us. The loan, the interest rate is very high. If we don't pay it back, we will lose the house," Dad finished, looking at me with hopeful, desperate eyes. "You have millions, Stephen. It's nothing to you. Help your family, please." I looked at them. I looked at the people who had made me feel small for 28 years. "You're right," I said. "It is nothing to me. Financially." I leaned in close. "But I'm not going to pay it." Their faces fell. "What?" Emily gasped. "I'm not paying Brad's debt," I said. "You signed the papers. You wanted the quick buck. You deal with the consequences." "But we'll be homeless," Mom shrieked. "Stephen, you can't do this to your mother." "You have a regional manager's son-in-law," I said coldly. "Maybe he can help you." "Oh, wait, he's in jail." I turned around. "Stephen!" my father yelled, standing up. "If you walk away now, don't bother coming back for Christmas. You are turning your back on family." I stopped. I didn't turn around. I didn't turn my back on family, Dad. I said loud enough for the nearby tables to hear. I never had one. I walked away. I headed for the exit. The air in the ballroom felt lighter. The suffocating weight I had carried since childhood was gone. I had dropped the bomb. I had burned the bridge. And looking back at the flames, I realized something. It was beautiful. The lobby of the Grand Hotel was quiet compared to the chaos inside. I walked out through the revolving doors into the snowy night. The air was crisp and clean. I saw my reflection in the glass. Tuxedo, unbowed, unbroken. A valet was waiting, but not the normal valet. My personal driver, Thomas, was standing next to a car that was definitely not a Honda. It was a Rolls-Royce Phantom, extended wheelbase, in midnight black. It sat there like a beast, commanding respect from every other vehicle in the driveway. Thomas opened the rear door. "Good evening, sir. How was the party?" "Brief," I said, "but productive." As I was about to get in, the hotel doors burst open behind me. It was Emily. She had run out without her coat, shivering in her strapless dress. "Stephen, wait!" she screamed. I paused, one foot in the car. She ran down the steps, her high heels slipping on the ice. She looked frantic. Her mascara was running. "Stephen, please," she panted, grabbing the door handle of the Rolls-Royce. Her eyes widened when she saw the interior, the lamb's wool mats, the starlight headliner. "My God, is this yours?" "Let go of the door, Emily," I said. "Stephen, you can't leave us like this," she cried, her teeth chattering. "Dad is having a panic attack. Mom is hysterical. The police are asking us questions about Brad's money. They think we were accomplices." "Were you?" I asked. "No, of course not. We were victims too." She grabbed my lapel. "Stephen, you have to get us a lawyer, a good one. The company lawyers won't talk to us. You own the company. Tell them to help us." "Why would I do that?" I asked. "Because we're blood," she screamed. And I have custody of your niece. Do you want Lily to see her mother go to jail or be homeless?" Using her daughter, a classic Emily move. "Lily is innocent," I said, "and don't worry. I've already set up a college fund for her, a trust. You can't touch it. Only she can when she turns 18. Emily blinked. You did?" "Yes. Because I'm not a monster," I said. "But you and Brad, you're on your own." "But the house," she whimpered. "Brad gambled away the loan money. If we don't pay the bank by Monday, they foreclose. Mom and Dad will be on the street. They're old, Stephen." "They should have thought about that before they bet the farm on a con man," I said. "Maybe they can rent a basement apartment. I hear they think basements are good enough for family." "You bastard," she hissed, her sadness turning back to anger. "You planned this. You let us humiliate ourselves. You knew all along." "I gave you a chance," I said softly. "Last night, dinner. I waited for one kind word, one defense, one thank you for the wine. If any of you had treated me like a human being, I would have written a check to cover Brad's mess tonight. I would have saved you." Emily froze. The realization hit her. It wasn't my cruelty that doomed them. It was theirs. "But you didn't," I said. "You laughed." I stepped into the car. "Stephen." "No." She banged on the window. "Stephen!" Thomas closed the door. The sound was a solid, heavy thud that shut out the world. "Drive, Thomas," I said. The Rolls-Royce glided away from the curb. I looked out the tinted window. I saw Emily shrinking in the distance, a small, shivering figure in the snow, screaming at taillights. My phone buzzed. A text from Dad. "We are your parents. You owe us." I blocked the number. Then a text from Mom. "Please, I'm sorry. We can start over." I blocked the number. Then a text from Sarah. "Police have Brad in custody. He's singing like a canary. He's trying to pin the fraud on your father, saying Richard was the mastermind behind the loan scheme." I typed back, "Let justice take its course. If they are innocent, they'll be fine. If they were greedy, well." I leaned back into the leather seat. I poured myself a glass of champagne from the car's cooler. It was the same brand Brad had bragged about, Chateau Margaux. I took a sip. Tasted good. But honestly, the bottle I had brought to dinner tasted better. I was alone, but for the first time in my life, I wasn't lonely. I was free. The interior of a Rolls-Royce Phantom is designed to do one thing: separate you from the world outside. As Thomas navigated the car away from the Grand Hotel, the screaming face of my sister and the chaos of the gala faded into the snowy night. The silence inside the cabin was absolute. save for the soft hum of the tires on the fresh powder. I leaned my head back against the leather headrest. My heart was still hammering against my ribs, a stark contrast to the calm exterior I had presented on stage. It wasn't the adrenaline of fear anymore. It was the adrenaline of severance. It felt like I had just amputated a limb that had been gangrenous for 20 years. It hurt, but I knew it was the only way to survive. "Where to, sir?" Thomas asked, his eyes meeting mine in the rearview mirror. "Just drive, Thomas," I said, staring out at the blurred city lights. "Take the long way home. I need to think." My phone was still buzzing incessantly on the seat beside me. I picked it up, not to answer, but to silence it completely. I saw missed calls from numbers I had known my whole life, but which now felt like they belonged to strangers. There was a voicemail from my father. I shouldn't have listened to it, but curiosity is a dangerous thing. I pressed play. "Stephen, you ungrateful... How could you? The police are here. They're taking statements. They think we knew about the embezzlement. You have to come back here and tell them we're innocent. You have the best lawyer in the city on your payroll. Send her back. If we lose the house because of this investigation, it's on your head. Do you hear me? It's on your head." He didn't ask how I was. He didn't congratulate me on my success. He didn't apologize for letting Brad humiliate me. He was just worried about his assets. He was worried about the inheritance he had already squandered. I deleted the message. Then I deleted the thread. The next few months were a blur of legal proceedings and corporate restructuring. Brad's downfall was swift and public because he had been so loud about his success. The media loved the story of his failure. Turned out my audit was just the tip of the iceberg. Brad hadn't just stolen from the charity fund. He had been running a Ponzi scheme on the side, targeting the elderly parents of his staff. He pleaded guilty to avoid a maximum sentence. He got 10 years. I didn't go to the sentencing. I read about it in the paper like everyone else. But for my family, the consequences were a slow-motion car crash. My parents' involvement with Brad's investment was disastrous. They had signed documents they didn't understand, blindly trusting the man in the shiny suit over their own son. When the bank called in the loan, they didn't have the capital. The foreclosure on Grandma's house, the house on 42 Oak Street, began in February. I remember the day Sarah, my lawyer, walked into my office. "Stephen," she said, placing a file on my desk, "the auction is scheduled for next Tuesday. The bank is seizing the property on Oak Street. Your parents are being evicted." I stopped typing. I looked at the file. That house was where I had learned to ride a bike. It was where I had built my first computer in the basement. "They are asking if you want to intervene," Sarah said softly. "You could buy the debt. It's pocket change for you." I stood up and walked to the floor-to-ceiling window looking out over Manhattan. It would be so easy. I could write a check, save the house, and let them live there. They would thank me for a week, and then they would resent me. They would say I was lording my money over them. They would ask for more. I thought about the Christmas dinner. I thought about the laughter. "No," I said. "No?" Sarah asked. "If I save them, they will never learn," I said. "They bet the house on a lie because they were greedy for status. Let them lose the status. Maybe then they'll find some humility." "Understood," Sarah said, closing the file. "I'll tell the bank to proceed." My parents lost the house. They had to sell most of their furniture to pay for a moving truck. They moved into a 2-bedroom rental in a part of town they used to make fun of. Emily's life imploded even faster. With Brad in jail, her income vanished. She was evicted from their luxury condo. She had to move in with my parents in their cramped rental. The tension in that small apartment must have been suffocating. Without money to distract them, they only had each other to blame. I thought the silence from them meant it was over. I thought they had finally accepted that I was gone. But toxic people don't let go that easily. They just change tactics. It was a Tuesday night in April. I was in a board meeting when my personal line rang. It was a number I didn't recognize, so I answered. "Is this Stephen?" a frantic voice asked. "This is Mrs. Higgins, your mother's neighbor." "Yes," I said, my stomach tightening. "Oh, thank God. Stephen, it's your mother. An ambulance just took her away. She collapsed in the hallway. She was clutching her chest. It looks like a heart attack. The room spun. No matter how much anger you hold, the words mother and heart attack still bypass your logic and hit your instinct. Which hospital? I asked, already signaling my assistant to cancel the meeting. St. Jude's, the neighbor said. Please hurry. It looked bad. I ran. I didn't take the Rolls-Royce. I took the first taxi I could find. On the ride over, the guilt hit me like a physical blow. Was this my fault? Did the stress of the eviction kill her? Was I a murderer? I rushed into the emergency room. I found the reception desk. Karen? My mother, Karen? I stammered. She was just brought in. Room 402, the nurse said. She's stable. I sprinted to the elevator. When I got to the 4th floor, I saw my father and Emily standing in the hallway. They looked haggard. My father's suit was frayed. Emily looked tired, her roots showing. Stephen! Emily cried out when she saw me. She ran over and hugged me. I was too shocked to push her away. Thank God you came. We thought we lost her. Is she okay? I asked, breathless. It was a massive coronary event, my father said, wiping his eyes. The stress, the move, it was too much for her heart. The doctors say she needs surgery immediately. Then let them operate, I said. Do they need insurance info? I'll cover it. Everything. My father looked at Emily, then back at me. It's not that simple, son. The surgery she needs, it's experimental. Insurance won't cover it. And this hospital? They won't do it without a deposit. How much? I asked. 200,000, Emily said quickly. We need to transfer it now or they won't prep the OR. Something in her voice made me pause. It was too fast, too specific. 200,000? I repeated. For a heart surgery in an ER? Don't argue about money now, Dad snapped. Your mother is dying in there. Just write the check. Do you want her death on your conscience too? I looked at the door to room 402. Through the glass, I could see my mother lying in the bed, hooked up to a monitor. She looked pale. But then I looked at the monitor. I'm a data guy. I look at numbers all day. Her heart rate was 72, steady, rhythmic. Her blood pressure was 120/80. Those weren't the vitals of a woman having a massive coronary event. Those were the vitals of a woman resting. I pulled out my phone. What are you doing? Emily asked, panic rising in her voice. Transfer the money. I'm calling Dr. Aris, I said. He's the chief of cardiology at Mount Sinai. He's on my board of directors. If Mom needs surgery, I want the best. No, Dad blocked my hand. There's no time. This doctor knows her case. Just give us the money, Stephen. Why do you have to control everything? Get out of my way, I said, pushing past him. I walked into room 402. My mother's eyes were closed. She was breathing heavily, making a wheezing sound. Mom, I said. She opened one eye, saw me, and immediately started gasping. Stephen, my boy, you came. I knew you would. I'm so cold. I'm here, Mom, I said. I looked at the chart hanging at the foot of the bed. I read the admission notes. Patient complaint, chest pain, anxiety. Diagnosis, panic attack. No cardiac enzymes elevated. EKG normal. Discharge plan. Send home with anti-anxiety medication. There was no heart attack. There was no surgery. They had staged it. They used the neighbor to call me to make it real. They knew I would come running. They knew guilt was the only lever they had left to pull. I felt the anger drain out of me, replaced by a profound, hollow sadness. This was it. This was the bottom. You can stop acting, Mom, I said quietly. She kept gasping. What? What do you mean? My chest. I read the chart, I said, holding it up. Panic attack. Normal EKG. You're being discharged. The wheezing stopped instantly. She sat up. The dying woman act vanishing in a second. My father and Emily burst into the room behind me. Stephen, don't read that, Emily yelled. It was a panic attack caused by your abandonment, Dad shouted, trying to salvage the narrative. She's sick with worry. She needs that money for recovery, for a nursing home. We can't live in that dump anymore. So you lied, I said. You faked a heart attack to get $200,000 out of me. It's our money, Mom screamed, her face twisting into ugly entitlement. We raised you. We fed you. You are a billionaire and you let your parents live like rats. You owe us. I owe you nothing, I said. We are your family, Emily cried. Look at us. We have nothing. I can't even afford a lawyer for my divorce from Brad. He left me with nothing but debt. You have your health, I said, and you have each other. That's more than I had growing up. I walked to the door. If you walk out that door, my father threatened, pointing a shaking finger at me, I will go to the press. I will tell them you abandoned your dying mother. I will ruin your reputation. I turned back one last time. Go ahead, I said. Tell them. Tell them everything. But make sure you show them the medical charts too. Because if you slander me, Dad, I won't just fire you. I will sue you for every penny you don't have. I looked at my mother, who was now sitting cross-legged on the hospital bed, glaring at me with pure hatred. Goodbye, Karen, I said. I hope the anxiety medication helps. I walked out of the hospital. I walked past the reception desk. Sir, the nurse called out, are you family? I paused. No, I said. I'm just an acquaintance. I stepped out into the night air. It was spring now. The snow was gone. The air smelled of rain and new life. I took a deep breath. The cord was cut. The last manipulation had failed. They were gone. And I was still here. The fireplace in my penthouse crackled, casting a warm golden glow over the room. Outside, the New York skyline twinkled. A million lights representing a million stories. But inside, for the first time in my life, there was peace. It was Christmas Eve again. But this wasn't a dinner of cold shoulders and folding chairs. The long mahogany table was set, but not with pretension. There were no assigned seats. There was no judgment about which fork to use. Hey, Uncle Ben, I called out toward the kitchen. You verify the turkey temp? Uncle Ben walked out, wearing a Kiss the Cook apron over his flannel shirt. He was holding a glass of the same Napa Cabernet I had brought to that disastrous dinner a year ago. Internal temp is perfect, kiddo, Ben grinned. Unlike your dad's roasts, which were always dry as a bone. We both laughed. Ben had been estranged from the family for years because he was unsuccessful, a carpenter who worked with his hands. Now he was the head of facilities for my company. He was happier than I'd ever seen him. Dinner is served, called out Sarah, my lawyer, my bulldog, and now my trusted friend. She walked in carrying a massive bowl of mashed potatoes. Marcus Sterling was there too, sitting on the sofa playing Mario Kart with my niece, Lily. Yes, Lily was here. After the hospital incident, Emily's life had spiraled. She couldn't maintain a home. Child Protective Services had gotten involved. I didn't want to take Lily away from her mother, but I couldn't let her grow up in that toxicity. I fought for custody, not full, but guardianship. Emily had signed the papers in exchange for me paying off her credit card debt. She chose the money over her daughter. Again. Uncle Steve, Lily yelled. Mr. Marcus is cheating. He used a blue shell. It's a strategic asset, Lily, Marcus laughed. Business 101. I looked around the room. This was my constellation. Uncle Ben, the outcast. Sarah, the defender. Marcus, the mentor. Lily, the future. This was my family. Not by blood, but by bond. Not by obligation, but by choice. We sat down to eat. The conversation was loud, messy, and real. No one bragged about salaries. No one compared job titles. We talked about ideas. We talked about movies. We talked about life.